Hi. As we've now had a few days to get familiar with the XCOM 2 mod tools, I thought I'd try my hand at a quick video tutorial to show you how to mod in some basic customization options. These work really well with the character pool as they allow you to create characters that look that little bit more like anyone you might wish to recreate. They're also really easy to do. You just need the graphics themselves. Specifically, we're going to deal with face paints, tattoos, and how to do patterns for weapons and armor. All three of these are really similar, but they are handled a little bit differently, as we'll see when we get onto them. Before we start, if you haven't used XCOM Mod Buddy before, the first thing you need to do is go Tools, Options, and in the XCOM 2 section, General, you have the install path for the game, which will probably be Steam, Steam Apps, Common, XCOM 2, XCOM Game, and the user path for the SDK itself, which, again, Steam Apps, Common, XCOM 2, SDK, XCOM Game. Make sure you've got these set because you need them for debugging, and when you build your project, you need it to build into the game's folders so that when you play the game, your mod's there, things like that. With that set, we can start and create a new project. File, New Project. You've got a few examples here of things like voice packs, missions, map packs, classes, weapons. We're just going to choose empty for the moment because this is a really simple mod and we don't need much at all in it. You can set your name of your mod, so we're going to call this My Example Mod and click OK. We get the title here. This is what will appear when you're selecting it from the mod list, and a description. So it creates a README file, which you would probably want to fill in if it was a more complicated mod. We don't really care about it at the moment. Other than that, we've just got the solution. Now the first thing we want is we need to make 3 folders here. So we go Add, New Folder. Now the first folder is called Config. The second folder is called Localization. I need to think about the American way to spell localization. And the third folder is called Content. Now, content folder we can just ignore for the moment. We're going to do that in the editor later on. For the moment, we need to think about the config folder. We need to add a new item, and we want a configuration file. Now, this configuration file relates to the configuration files that are in the main game files, so it's an equivalent for that. So this one is called XComContent.ini. So it's a configuration file. Now we're going to add 3 things here. We're going to add a pattern, we're going to add a tattoo, and we're going to add a face paint. Now fortunately I have a copy of what I need in this config file over here, and I'm just going to copy it across. I don't need that. So first line, XCOM game .x2 body part template manager. We're looking at body parts, which is what each of these things are, and then we're saying for each line here I want to add a body part template configuration. The part type is what it is, whether it's a pattern, a tattoo, a face paint. The template name is the name of the template. So we've called them my pattern, my tattoo, and my face paint. You obviously want to give these unique names because it's how they're going to be referred to by the game, and if other people call them the same thing, then you'll have problems. Then we have the archetype name, which is whereabouts within our content, which again we'll come to later, you find the actual details for what the template is. So we're going to have a UPK file called MyTexturePack, and the actual name of the element within that UPK will be MyPattern, MyTattoo, and MyFacePaint. Then we have a couple of extra things like, can the civilians use these things? Veterancy is when you have to rank up to a certain point before you can use that thing. So the face paint you can use whenever. The tattoo, you need to be veteran. The pattern, you need to be veteran. You can obviously change these if you want. And then we have an armor template for the tattoo. I have no idea what that does. So just leave it like that. I'm sure it's fine. That's that file complete. That's all we need in there. Now, localization, we also need to add a ini file. No, sorry, not an ini file. We need to add a localization file. The way the localization works in this is that you have different files for the different languages. At the moment, we're just going to worry about English. So you want XCOM game.int. This is a text file. Okay, yeah, delete that. Now, this is going to tell us how we refer to our different content items within the game itself. If you wanted this localized into other languages, you could have XComGame.esp for Spanish, FRA for French. I don't think the game supports Spanish, but whatever. So on and so forth. We're just going to do English at the moment. Now, again, we have a few things over here. We need one of these for each element that we're doing. So this is saying we have an element of this type, and this is what it's referred to. So our three types here, we have MyPattern. So it would be MyPattern, X2 BodyPartTemplate, which again relates to BodyPartTemplate here. And then we want to display it as pattern. So in the game, it will have the lists like digital and Arctic and hearts and smiley face, and then it'll have pattern or whatever you call it. Similarly, we then need one of those for each item here. Oops. Once that's done, the only other thing we need in here at this exact moment in time, we will need the UPK file, but we need to create that first. And we need a JPEG of the mod preview. We'll make a picture later. We can make a picture now. Let's make a picture now. File, new. So if we then go add existing item, desktop, preview.jpg, not preview, well yes it should, but it should be called mod preview. And then that's that mod preview. Okay, Now we need to move on to the actual XCOM2 editor. So we go Tools, XCOM2 Editor. We open this up. This will take a little while to load. This is loading on my other monitor, but it is going through its loading the assets and everything. So we just need to give that a minute. We get a couple of warnings. That's usual. Get some startup tips and some more warnings like this. Okay, so the folder we're interested in at the moment is the content browser. Now, one easy way to look at these things is we want to make we'll start with the pattern. If we go packages here, you will probably start with this minimized down like this. You can just click on it and open it up and then drag and drop if you want more space. We've got a filter here which is very, very useful. It allows you to find what you're looking for. Similarly, a filter up here. If you click on particular folders here, you can filter the folder up here. Oops, if I can spell. So that's really useful for finding the specific things that you're looking for. We're going to look for patterns. So we've got examples of the patterns that exist at the moment. Now, there's two elements to this. There's the actual texture file itself. So here we've got smiley faces, and we've got hearts, and we've got played, and so on and so forth. And we also have the archetype here. Now you might remember we referred to the archetypes here. The name of the archetype, the UPK, and then the name of the archetype. So if I can find the right fault file. What we're going to do is we're just going to go, okay, let's copy one of these. Create a copy. And it comes up with this window. Now, we said... I can't do that apparently. We said we want our package to be called MyTexturePack. So if we replace this with MyTexturePack, and we said we wanted the camo to be called MyPattern. So if we click OK now, it will create a copy, and it's created a UPK file here called MyTexturePack.MyPattern. So that's the MyTexturePack.MyPattern. And now we can do the same thing for the tattoos and the face paints. Now the face paints, because they only exist, to my knowledge, in the DLC, you will need to actually load in the DLC UPK files, which we will look at in a second. But first we're going to create a copy of the tattoo. Again, you could put these in separate UPK files if you wanted. I'm just at the moment putting them all in one because it's a little bit more simple. But if you for example wanted to release like them as separate mods and stuff, you probably wouldn't want them all in one UPK file. So for the face paints, we're going to need to go into the DLC. So we go Steam Apps, Common, XCOM 2, XCOM Game, DLC Day 0, Content, and we've got two face paint UPKs here. We need both of these. One of these is the textures and one of these is something else. That's the correct way to do a tutorial. Something else. So these are these here. We've got the archetypes again here. We want to make a copy of this. Again in MyTexturePack, and this is my face paint. We've got our three archetypes here. Again, relating to these three archetype names here. Now, The next thing obviously we need is the actual textures for the different elements. Now, there's something to bear in mind here because the three of these are dealt with in slightly different ways. The tattoos, you might have noticed, are one single color, and the patterns are obviously based on the two colors you choose, except in the case of weapons where you choose one color and it modifies it in some way for the second. The face paints are totally normal textures, just all three channels of color. So what we're going to do first is if we go back to the face paint folder. Now, if we go to the DLC face paint here, we've got the different textures for the face paints. Because it's kind of hard to say, I'm going to make a texture from scratch, the easiest way to do this is if we view one of these textures over here, and we print screen it, then we can open it up in a editor. If we then make a new layer on here in transparency, we can see where the face is. So now if I want to give them red cheeks for the face paint, I can go, well, that's where one cheek's going to be, and that's where the other cheek's going to be. And we then want to select this element of this here. There might be easier ways to do this, but this is the way I'm doing it. And then we want to select that element of this layer, and then we can close this, discard changes. Now we've got our two misshapen red cheeks. The texture of the previous one is 2048 by 2048, so we will scale this to 2048, scale, file, export as, let's go back to my desktop. We'll call this cheeks. Cheeks. That's not how you spell cheeks. Cheeks.png. Export. Close that. Yes. Minimize. Now, if we go to here, make sure that we're in the... Oh no, firstly, one thing to do is if we go properties here, we can get the actual properties for this texture. Basically, we want to make sure that when we're setting up our textures that we're using similar settings to these ones, because that way we can be more sure that it's going to actually work properly. Now we want to navigate to our texture pack, my texture pack here, and then we can just drag and drop the texture from my desktop into here. Now it will come up with this and say the package, the name, and again the settings. So the things we want to change at the moment are the LOD group is character, so we want to select that from, sorry, wrong thing, here. And I think that's the only thing that needs changed. So OK. Okay, the editor crashed, but let's pretend that didn't happen. So, we're back where we were. We have our texture 2D cheeks. Now, this is going to be our face paint. So we need to right click on here and go properties. Now, we have the name of the texture that it was originally pointing to. If we right click on here, we can go copy full name to clipboard, and then, oops, if we can find this again, we can just paste that in there, and that's that. We have our face paint working. Now, patterns are slightly more complicated. If we go and look at the patterns, now you'll notice that all of these are in red and green and occasionally yellow. So basically all of these are only using two channels. You've got color 1, you've got color 2, and then you've got some combination of the two. So when we come to make a texture here, we're just going to make this 256 by 256. Anything that you make in blue basically is going to just show as black. So we'll do something completely boring because I'm not especially creative. We'll just have some red and some green, and we'll just put some weird symbols around, and you know, I never said it was going to be a pretty pattern. Now, again, these images are, well, that was 256 by 256, I think. So we have that there. Yeah, 256 by 256. Oh, sorry, I need to bring that over here so you can see it. 256 by 256. So if we again export this as, that's on the desktop, pattern.png, and once again we can drag and not into that folder, we can drag and drop it into our MyTexturePack folder. So, like so. And again, I opened this up earlier, and again I can't get it to the front, but we can see this. The difference here is that instead of compressing to default, it's compressing to two channels. That's the red and green we just talked about. So if you had just a normal colored thing, you'd still have to select two channels and it would compress it automatically. We similarly want character here, and I think that's all okay. So then there's our pattern. You can see it's actually changed the colors a little bit because of the compression. Not that it matters, because it's going to be using the colors that you pass to it anyway. Similarly here, then we want to go properties. Instead of using, let's close this. Instead of using that, we want to get the full name of this and paste it here. And that's that one. Now, the face paint was using all three channels, the pattern was using two channels, the tattoo is only using one channel. This is a problem if you want to do really nice fancy tattoos that have different bits and different colors, because as far as I can tell, you just can't do it. You've got one color and that's it, which is a shame, but well, let's demonstrate. If we choose and we try and draw something in green, and we try and draw something in blue, blue. Why are you not drawing? Why are you not selecting the color? Oh, because I'm being stupid. That's a good thing to do on camera, right? And we select red. I'm totally going to get this tattoo done. It's a work of art. And then we remove all that. Add an alpha layer. And then remove that, so that's clear background. Now, the tattoo textures aren't in there. The tattoo textures, if we want to find where they are, we can go properties, human-shared.decals.tattooArms. So again, we can go into here and we can go human-shared decals, and here's our tattoo arms. Here's another thing obviously you need to pay attention to. Each of these is both arms. So the left half is, I assume, the left arm, and the right half is, I assume, the right arm. It could be the other way around. You obviously want to make sure that those are lining up in the right place. You're probably going to have to play with the exact positioning and everything. I'm not going to look at that right now. You're going to have to experiment for yourself. Obviously, if you look at, like we did with the face mask, if you use where one of the textures are now compared to where it shows on the arm, you can use that to help figure things out. But for the moment, I'm just showing you how to do the basics, and artistic stuff is not my forte. So these are size 2048 by 2048, so we're going to scale this to be the same size. And save it as tattoo.png. And we can close that and go back to MyTexturePack. Look at these settings again, drag and drop the tattoo across. Now, you'll notice again, compression settings, one channel. So this is just the red channel. Again, we want LOD group character. And I think that's all we need to worry about. Okay. So you can see it's converted it down to just red. The things that had a little bit of red in them are a little bit red. Things that had more red in them are more red. And again, we then need to go My Tattoo, Properties. Close this. Get the full name of the tattoo and replace this. Now, that's everything that we need in our UPK file. We now need to save this. So this doesn't want to be in here. It wants to be where you're saving your mod. Now this will probably be Documents, Mod Body, XCOM, the name of your mod, so our mod's my example mod, content. So this was the content folder we made earlier that we didn't put anything in. If we click save here, it's saving on the other screen, but that'll save that. Now we can close this down now because we don't need this open at all. If we come over to here, content, add existing item, and then we want to be Documents, Mod Body, XCOM, my example mod, content, MyTexturePack. So there's our TexturePack UPK. So now that should be everything that we need to get this to work. If we build solution, is to start putting everything together and putting everything in the right place so that it works. That's nice and quick. We can then go debug, start debugging. And this will run the game in debug mode, which, well, it'll build it first and then it'll launch in debug mode. So we get this here. We've got my other mod, which we're going to leave on, and my example mod. So make sure you tick your new mod, and then click play. And this is going to launch on my other monitors, so I'm going to have to switch things over. So I will be back in a second. And here we are in the game. We have our character with her beautiful cheek painting things, her pattern on her armor, which, you know, looks interesting, her tattoos, which again, obviously, you know, you'd need to line these things up properly on the arm so that they look good, but, you know, we can change the color of them, and we can change the armor colors based on the different things that we set, and the face paint is a set color, so you can't change that. But that's how you do all that. Hopefully you people can make nicer, prettier things than what I've just made there. I hope this tutorial was helpful, and if you have any more questions, you know, shout or anything. And I look forward to seeing what everybody gets up to making over the coming weeks and months. Farewell.